Chapter 7. Dimensional Spaces. Dreams, wonders, and imaginings filled my sleep. Waking up the next day, I was more aware of the growing change within me. No words found my lips all morning, and even within I had grown silent and still. There were many things I couldn't answer or put into words. My spirit was content, at ease. My destiny was planned. There was no choice but to follow it and see it through. The afternoon and evening were spent reviewing and testing the various apparatus that would be used on the journey to the actual occurrence. It was similar to that which I had been connected to during my past life travels and astral projections, with some additional capabilities. It would accomplish the same as the past life memory travel in which I had left the present for the past, while still within my own self. However, in these projections, I would be actually leaving my body in the present for a real-time event that would take place in another space and dimension. I would then witness and relay the information back to freedom as it actually happened. Though I was quiet and pensive, I was very alert, and my attention was focused on all the directions I was being given. All who saw me that day noticed the new silence and stillness about me was growing more pronounced with each passing hour. It was physically evident, and it was present in my energy field as well, and it was seen and read by Rahedra's clairvoyant powers. The monitors had also physically and psychically detected a higher rate of frequency and energy being emitted from my presence during our time reviewing everything. I felt as I did when I first entered the causal space and trance, but with a sense of permanence about it. This clearer, higher state of perception was increasing. I was more aware of consistently feeling how I had felt in the higher energy vibration during my causal travels. My vision was more acute. Color seemed brighter. Rahedra explained that during sleep, my other self, my higher spirit, was in communication outside my physical conscious with the sources and powers of destiny. I was being given knowledge and insight, though not totally aware of it while I was awake. She then suggested that we take a walk outside for a break, and she continued. Once you do project and feel the reality of your true being and see the higher beauties and powers of creation, you will evolve to a much greater height of intelligence and knowing than probably anyone alive today. The speed at which you are awakening is magnificent, and once you do awaken, you will be the source through which humanity experiences the next occurrence. Through your eyes, you will awaken us through the occurrence to the age of the Spirit. You are the key, Paul. You do not totally know it yet, but your higher self most definitely does. Dr. Jason has said that during your sleep times these last few days, he has communicated with you. He understands that your full awakening is just around the corner. Once you do awaken, you will then be the leader and decider of how to express the importance of the occurrence. You will be able to imagine a color that has never been on our physical earth dimension, because you will have seen it while traveling outside our world. Then you and we will know what is to appear before you. Through you, the whole world will also see. I can understand the immensity of it all, but I wish to express it through laughter and joy. I am a light-hearted being by nature, and the seriousness of all this is evident, but I will relay it much more effectively by keeping a smile on my lips, don't you think? The noticeable change in my tone of voice, my choice of words, and my demeanor came to us both in a cascade of laughter. We laughed and laughed until we both fell into each other's arms. Life, love, Rahedra, destiny, creation, they all seemed ours, mine, at this moment when my laughter and hers blended together in a song of joy that was like music to my soul. I had already been afloat in the huge sensory enhancement tank for several hours. Oils had been rubbed over my entire body to keep the water from soaking and hurting my skin. Through the first stage, I had been floating a few hours with full light entering through the windows and my eyes able to open. I was able to speak. My body functions and vital organs were being recorded and monitored. The energy fields about my body, the psychic currents that twirled around me, were tested and recorded. In the second stage, my eyes were kept closed with some light shades, and I was following special breathing patterns as directed by Rahedra and Dr. Jason. These were to help in the intake and control of new energy and oxygen, which would make my body physically and psychically more receptive. All lights except those from the monitors were turned off in the third stage. The windows were sealed to cut off all outside light by partitions, and my eyes were once again free to open. Some musical tones began to sound periodically as various images and impressions of light were flashed about the ceiling. Their effect was good. The sounds and visions led me into a different world of mind and thought. Much of the time I was conscious. Other times I was somewhere between myself and this other space, which I could feel drawing and enticing me with its rapture and beauty. A few times I heard sounds like tones of vibration coming from elsewhere. I knew that they were not from the room, as the music was, but from another space. Flashes of color blended and separated before my eyes, whether they were opened or closed. The colors were not from the room or monitors, but from this other space that was seducing me and my spirit from my bodily sheath. Occasional spasms went through my physical body as my astral body was being pulled back into its casement of flesh by my unsure conscious. Dr. Jason's voice was soft, luring, as he spoke words that soothed and mellowed me into total relaxed peace and calmness. All was silent inside the room, apart from his words. The ceiling was now aglow with lights and pictures that drew a sky filled with stars and planets that moved and glistened as the real night. I couldn't discern whether my eyes were closed or open. At times I knew, but at other times it seemed not at all to matter. This sight I was now starting to experience was different and more vivid, capturing much more than my normal eyes. My physical vision was now starting to see only the same images as my inner sight was experiencing. It was as if my whole vibration as a being was evolving. Deeper and deeper, farther into this space I moved. I began to see flashes, swirls of white sparks, each as bright as the sun. I began moving through them. No longer were the outer sounds or impressions seen by me. I knew they were there, but somehow I was able to prevent them from affecting my senses, which seemed to be vibrating like a tuning fork. I felt the changes, and I knew I was out of my body. I didn't want to startle myself or jump back into my body. I couldn't tell if I was completely out, so I thought myself forward. Somehow I sensed the people in the room behind me, knowing well that they were actually in front of me. I could feel them through my senses from behind. I thought myself backward and then saw them before me. I searched the horizon of the sparkles of light that seemed to have no end. All that was physical was simple, easy to know and be aware of, without the least bit of effort in trying to recognize anything. I knew it was there, and I could evaluate anything physical in what seemed the speed of light, or faster, the speed of thought, my psyche acknowledged. My visions were the centerpiece for all my senses, both physical and psychic. My mind's eye could see the physical by looking out from angles or to the sides. Then all the psychic impressions could be received by turning my vision inward. Warmth would be felt at my forehead, and then a stronger, more intense perception of sight would envelop me. This allowed my vision to see all areas in front, around, and behind me at once. The more I focused my vision inward, the farther around I could see. I thought myself forward to the far end of the room, turned my sights outward, and saw all present within the room. I could see the monitors, Rehedra, and Dr. Jason. I couldn't believe that the hulk of flesh atop the streaming water was me. I seemed so different to myself than I'd ever been before. Through all my life, I had only seen my face through a reflection, or by the descriptions people would give me of it. Now, I saw myself for the first time as others from the outside saw me. I decided to turn my vision inward while still focused on the physical. The color tone of everything began to grow brighter, much finer and clearer. The sensation of my presence seemed to effervesce in delight. I turned my sight inward a little more, and the colors began to sparkle and separate into particles. The more I turned my vision inward, the larger the separation of the colors, and the more bliss, freedom, and pleasure I felt. The colors flooded and filled the space all around me. There were sounds coming from within the room that I knew were physical, but different sounds came from outside the building. I started to follow, then stopped myself. I wasn't ready to venture out yet. I let my vision turn outward until the very beginning of separation of the physical colors again took place. I glanced over at myself and noticed a thin, pale, blue-white light emanating from my body. I looked up at the others and saw the same light being emitted from them. I turned my vision a little more inward again, and a radiant aura of twirling lights and colors began to circle around each body with a diameter of 2 to 3 feet. I locked my vision into place, and the colors began to steady until at least 2 colors became dominant around each person. I focused specifically on Dr. Jason, and a bright yellow blended with royal blues and purples filled the space around him. Where the colors ended, in the oval of the aura, flickers of all the colors could be seen sparkling off into the nothingness that appeared to surround everything. As I turned my vision inward, the nothingness would become another space filled with more colors, becoming what appeared to be a cosmic dance of endless rainbows, turning and arching into and through one another. I turned my vision back again and refocused on Rehedra. The colors twirling around her were light blue, streaks of bright, clear violet, and some tones of light, brilliant pink. I focused inward more, and her colors became clearer. Her body particles began to separate much more until I could see the energy colors swirling steadily in her aura. Her astral sheath appeared, vibrating in a perfect replica of her own body, almost attached to her skin. I hadn't seen an astral body on anyone until Rehedra, so I realized that the levels of visual perception of my psychic sight were increasing exponentially. It seemed that with each visual movement I made came a totally different perception of what was seen. The more inwardly I focused, the more my perceptions were heightened. It came to my mind to look back at myself, to my own body that was floating in the sensory enhancement tank. I wanted to be next to it. I thought it, and before I could command or request movement from myself, I was already there, without a bit of sensation of movement. Astonished, I looked about, turned my focus outward to clearly see the physical again. All the technicians were monitoring their equipment, reading and recording the pulsation of breath in my body, and the viewing screen showed everything that I was viewing. Dr. Jason and Rehedra were at my body's sides, glancing at me, at the computers, back up at the screen, then back to me. Across the room, I noticed reflections bouncing off of a mirror that covered a wall, so I thought myself there, and then was there instantly, without any feeling of movement at all. I looked at myself, but could not see my reflection. Instead, I saw the reflection of my body on top of the sensory enhancement tank and the others around me. I decided to focus inward and locked my vision at the place where colors began to separate and turn into auras. I turned my view away from the mirror. When my sight was set, I turned back to see a magnificent, dazzling image of the auras twirling around everyone. Even more exciting was that for the first time, I was now also seeing my own energy field. An intense, dominant orange spun around my astral body with streaks of light green, blue, and red jetting through it in all places. I was amazed at the consciousness of actually seeing my astral reflection and my own aura, while my physical body was in the tank with a pulsating bluish light force emanating from it. I also realized that when I was back in my body, my aura would be there with me. I focused inward some more, and the inner figure of my astral sheath locked in, pulsing with sparks of light, coalescing into a form similar to that of my body. My features were there, but not solid or flesh-like. They were like thick, fluffy clouds that adhered to one another within the space of the astral form. These were dimensional spaces of clairvoyant vision. I focused inward some more, and the space grew larger until the trillions of particles of light again surrounded me. I focused inward more, and the particles began to come together. I turned inward more until I could almost see all the way around myself. The light became much brighter. I kept turning my vision inward, and a sensation of pleasure, happiness, and indescribable beauty filled me. The light grew intense, and when I felt I was almost all the way around in my sight, I felt a slipping or a falling, as if my sight seemed to overlap and turn a complete circle around me. I felt a total weightlessness, rapture, calm. And when I felt my vision encompass the total circumference, a sudden flash of pure white light, of great magnificence and brilliance, burst before me. I felt a tremendous pulling on my body and blurring of my sight. Then came a strong jolting spasm that catapulted my body inches off of the water. Sight poured into my physical eyes, and the sudden sense of falling and spinning brought me leaping to my feet. I fell back and splashed a bit, but caught my hand on the bottom of the tank before I fell under. The sudden movement disconnected a few of the impulse meters attached to my body. I felt hands grabbing and pulling me up. "Take it easy, Paul. You're okay," came Dr. Jason's voice. "Take it easy." My mind raced quickly through an analysis of my predicament. I realized that I had been jolted back into my body. Dr. Jason helped me out of the tank as I began to gather my physical senses again. Standing up, my hands went for my face and rubbed off some of the dripping water. "You feel okay?" asked Rahedra. "Yeah, I'm okay," I answered, turning my sight to them. It was too much. I mean, the light. I saw this flash that I didn't expect. What a jolt. I also saw the interdimensional spaces of clairvoyant vision and the energy auras. I saw myself, and I almost saw in a complete circle, but when I completed it, the flash caught me by surprise. "What was it?" I asked him. It was the color of the highest dimensional space. It's the final level of consciousness. According to the readings here on the computers, you went out of your astral and your auric body when you raised your powers of vision. But when you entered your pure soul body, the shock of the light was too much for the first try. The jolt was the re-entering of your soul to your auric, astral, and physical body all in one instant. You should have seen the meters spike when you came flying back in. I felt like I was being called from outside the building, but I was too unsure to venture out. Would it have been safe if I had? Surely, out there is where the truth, the true reality, exists. If I go out, how do I come back without spasms or jolts? You just need to think yourself back to your body, position yourself into it, and command your physical sheath to awaken. If you had thought of telling your body to do something, it would have reacted even if you were outside of it. If you had wanted to speak, all you would have had to do was say the words. Should I try going back into the pure light? Not too soon. I recommend you acquaint yourself with the other spaces first, so you'll have more control and understanding of what to expect from the highest level and what the highest level expects of you. Okay, I think. Yeah, I'm sure I've got it. I don't know how, but I'm sure I can do it better the next time. Okay, I want to try it again, but I first want to see what was just recorded so that I can get a better understanding of everything. You ventured far and saw a great deal today. Let it settle and find resonance within you, and soon we'll go again. Then I'm sure everything will continue as destined. I would recommend that you meditate for a long while tonight to allow your higher self to communicate to your physical conscious. It will definitely help. The sense of being in astral form was still strong within me. I knew well that my full development had not yet reached its peak, but that I was growing every minute, every hour. After watching everything I had just experienced in the recordings, I was very ready to continue. But I also wanted to think and meditate, as Dr. Jason had suggested. That night, I decided to travel again through the many images and visions that I had seen. Yes, I had seen a color that had never been on this world, and I would never have to try to imagine it again. I now knew for myself, as Rahedra had said I would. As I looked over at her, a smile came over her beautiful face, and I realized she had read my mind again, and I could see she was pleased with my thoughts.